you can keep the shit straight hood because you know goodness well that nigga blued up 6 on my hat and blue laces, blue everything.
Dude is just like his daddy. This dude Luce Cannon.
Answer this question for Scandalous TV. He said, Rose said my daddy's a rat, right? I seen my daddy 3 times my whole life. And it was in San Quentin prison, right? If Cuz is a rat and there's paperwork on Cuz is a rat and all Cuz. Dead homies.
I'm back with another video. This one gonna hit different as it encompasses the story of Tremaine Ashley Williams, aka the fake Luce Cannon's father. In one of my most recent videos, we covered the fake Luce Cannon and the alleged snitching activity of his pops. However, in this video, we will cover Big Nutty's entire story. Sit back, buckle up. This is going to be a long one. George Brett Williams, adopted as a baby by Charles and Jessie Mae Williams, founders of the Williams Home for Children with Special Needs, was pretty much raised as a silver spoon kid. Raised in the couple's Acton Park mansion, George attended private schools. Wanting to fit in with the crowd, at the age of 16, the young George dropped out of school and began hanging out with gang members. Ultimately, George would leave his parents' home when he was only 18 years of age, moving into a nearby rental property owned by his mother, whom was also a real estate agent. The burly 6'3" tall George Williams quickly ascended the ranks of the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips, one of LA's largest gangs.
Police say that drugs and violence are being spread to other cities, chiefly by 2 long-standing rivals in the Los Angeles youth gang scene. Black groups who call themselves Crips and wear blue colors, and Bloods who wear red.
It wouldn't be long before George will become well known as Big Nutty. To other members, Nutty was not at all a classic gang member. He was extremely articulate, intelligent, and a very manipulative young man, which may explain why he was able to rise in the hierarchy of the 60s so quickly. Nutty made bread and earned respect on the streets as a drug and gun dealer who drove a flashy black BMW. Known around town as a high roller, George oftentimes stayed in Las Vegas hotels for free. Over the years, it was alleged that Nutty assaulted several people, supplied the guns used in the 1983 murders of a mother and her 16-year-old son, beat a woman and father, and shot at a police officer who was taking a burglary report. It's a dirty world, but it still spins. Nutty, who initially denied any involvement in the crimes, offered to testify against his homies. During trial, several witnesses came forward to report that Nutty had offered them money to testify on his behalf. Other witnesses would testify that they had been threatened. After the jury returned his verdict, Nutty's wife Monique received permission from the judge to give her husband a new pair of shoes. This, however, was an attempt at smuggling drugs into the prison. Nutty's wife was quickly arrested after the bailiff found that the soles were lined with several balloons of heroin. It is these turn of events that brings us to our story. On January the 2nd of 1990, Willie Thomas and Jack Barron were fatally shot at close range in a house on Spring Street in Los Angeles. Their bodies were dragged to a truck parked in the garage, where they were found when the police arrived in response to a neighbor's call reporting gunshots. The prosecution's theory was that Nutty shot both victims in the course of a robbery that had begun as a drug transaction. According to prosecution witnesses, earlier that evening, Nutty had planned to scam the victims through a fraudulent drug transaction by trading fake money for drugs. The victims met Nutty at the bar parking lot, but for reasons unknown, the transaction did not occur there. Instead, later that evening, the victims came to the Spring Street home, which was a freaking hangout for Nutty and his 3 homies. According to the testimony of his 3 homies, all of whom had pleaded guilty in prior proceedings, Nutty shot both victims. Additionally, 2 neighbors to the Spring Street home testified that Nutty was present at the house on the night of the killings. The prosecution presented evidence that the paid procedure found at the scene of the crime was Nutty's, and that his fingerprints were found in the room where the victims had been shot and on the truck to which the victim's body had been dragged. The prosecution also presented evidence that Nutty fled Los Angeles after the shooting, and that upon his return 2 weeks later, he sought to pay some new acquaintances to fabricate an alibi for him for the night of the murders. Prosecution presented evidence of the murders and the drug deal surrounding it largely through the testimony of two of Nutty's accomplices, Patrick Linton and Darius Cyprian. Their testimony was corroborated by the testimony of other witnesses, telephone records, and physical evidence. It's no secret that Nutty socialized with Patrick, Darius, and Dino Lee. This group often gathered at the house on Spring Street, where Darius' half-brother, Ernie Pierre, lived. On the upstairs floor of the house was a vacant small apartment, where victims Willie Thomas and Jack Barron were shot on January 2nd of 1990. Darius and his mother, Marcella Pierre, lived in the house across the street. In the week prior to the killing, Nutty mentioned to Patrick that he intended to jack the plug by giving them fake money. On the day of the murders, Nutty was socializing with Patrick and Darius at the Spring Street home. It was then that Nutty told Patrick he was going to set up a drug deal with victims Jack Barron and Willie Thomas. Telephone records indicated that on the day of the murders, 3 calls were made between Nutty's house and an air-conditioned business called ARA. Both victims, Barron and Thomas, worked at ARA. Fellow ARA employee Londell Richardson testified that on the day of the murders, he overheard a telephone conversation by Thomas and Barron, indicating that after work, they were planning to go to a bar to transact a drug deal involving 50 racks and 3 or 4 keys of coke. In preparation for the drug transaction, Nutty, Patrick, and Darius went to Nutty's house, where Nutty assembled packages of torn phone book pages, which he wrapped to resemble bundles of cash, placing them in a plastic bag. Nutty also bought 3 guns, which were later found at the scene of the crime: a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver, a .38 caliber Titan automatic pistol, and a carbine rifle. Patrick drove Nutty and Darius in his blue Chevy Blazer to the parking lot of the bar. After they parked, Nutty hopped out of the truck and went over to Barron, whose truck was parked in the back of the lot. As Thomas stood next to the truck, Nutty spoke with them for 30 to 45 minutes. After the long drawn-out conversation, Nutty returned to the Blazer and told Patrick that they were going to follow Barron and Thomas to a house in Southgate. Barron and Thomas drove out of the parking lot together in a blue Chevy Sprint, an ARA company car that Thomas often drove. Nutty, Patrick, and Darius proceeded to follow the Sprint as far as the freeway, but Nutty decided at the last moment not to follow and told Patrick to drive instead back to his house. There, they dropped off the guns in the plastic bag of fake cash. This is where the plot thickens, as Darius would give a slightly different account than that of Patrick of the events at the bar parking lot. Darius' story goes like this: while he was waiting in Patrick's truck, he saw a Camaro drive in. A Hispanic man got out of the Camaro and approached Patrick's truck. After the Hispanic man walked away, Patrick said that was Tony. Tony then went over and talked to Nutty and Barron. Barron left with Tony in the Camaro. Patrick, however, denied seeing someone named Tony that night. Another witness, Jose Picano's testimony was in accord with Patrick, and Barron and Thomas left together in the blue Chevy Sprint. The story doesn't end here. Nutty and Patrick drove to the Spring Street home in separate cars. Nutty drove his new Mercedes 190E, which he parked in the driveway. Patrick drove his Chevy Blazer with Darius as his passenger and parked in the front of the house. Nutty, Patrick, and Darius stayed in front of the house drinking beer for about an hour, plotting about the lick that they were about to hit. They would all eventually make their way to the vacant upstairs apartment and continue to drink while smoking weed. At some point, Nutty received a page and made a call. Nutty would then tell Patrick that Barron wanted to come to the house to do the drug drug deal. In the meantime, Dino had arrived and joined the others in the upstairs apartment. About 10 minutes after Dino arrived, Baron and Thomas arrived in the blue Sprint. It was at this point that Nutty went outside to talk to them. Upon returning, Nutty told Patrick that they should go to Nutty's crib to get the guns and the fake cash. They left and returned as Baron and Thomas waited in their car parked outside. After nearly 2.5 hours of bullshitting, the lick was about to go down. Nutty, Patrick, Baron, and Thomas finally went to the upstairs apartment where Darius and Dino were waiting. Patrick entered the apartment first. Upon entering, he heard someone say, "Get down, don't nobody move." That someone was none other than Nutty, who pulled out a .38 caliber revolver. Patrick was also strapped with a .38 caliber handgun as Baron and Thomas lie on the floor. It was at this point that Nutty would take shoestrings out of his coat pocket and instructed the others to tie the victim's hands and feet as Darius went through their pockets and removed their wallets. From the way this story has been painted, Nutty has been drawn out as the ringleader. The planned jack move is still going down. Nutty propped up Baron, who was now bound against one of the walls with his feet in front of him and his hand behind his back. Nutty put the .38 caliber revolver up to Baron's face, demanding the 3 birds of yayo. It was at this point that Nutty would tell Darius to move the car, which was parked in front of the Spring Street home, in case the victim's homies came looking for them. Nutty wasn't fucking around, as he would tell Baron to call his homies on the phone and tell them that all of the money was there, warning him not to speak Spanish. Kneeling and holding his gun, Nutty dialed the phone and held the receiver up to Baron's ear. Baron, scared for his life, told Nutty that the phone was not making a connection. Still holding his gun, Nutty brought the phone down and started redialing the number. As Nutty was dialing, his gun discharged, shooting Baron in the chest. Nutty then got up off his knees, walked over to Thomas, who was lying bound on the floor across the room, and shot him twice in the head. Nutty then walked back over to Baron and shot him in the head once. After the shootings, Nutty, Patrick, and Dino went to the backyard, where they waited for Darius to return from moving the victim's car. Having no idea what to do next, Nutty proposed moving the bodies. Patrick moved the Blazer from the street into the garage of the Spring Street home, closing the garage doors behind him. All 4 of them worked to move the dead bodies of Baron and Thomas into the back of the Blazer. In a poor attempt at getting rid of evidence, Darius unsuccessfully attempted to clean up some of the blood on the garage floor by throwing a bucket of water on it. Anxious to make a move, Nutty and the others were ready to drive off with the bodies, but out of nowhere, Dino yelled out a warning that the police were coming. About 20 to 30 minutes had elapsed between the shootings and the arrival of the police. Nutty and the 3 others fled, leaving the Blazer with the victims' bodies in the back seat, where police would discover them. George Brad Williams, aka Nutty, was convicted of the 1990 slayings of 2 Los Angeles men who were to sell him several bricks of yayo, per Deputy District Attorney Kevin McCormick. He was scheduled to be sentenced by Judge Madge Wakai in Compton. The District Attorney's Office sought the death penalty because George Williams had been involved in violent incidents since he was a teen. For the most part, you can look at the history of a gang member and figure out what happened, where things went wrong. However, for George Williams, this was not the case. George came from a very wealthy family, had a loving mother and father, and was given every possible opportunity to succeed in life. George's attorney, Ronald Lemieux, would state in court that he intended to file a motion for a new trial. Authorities said that in January of 1990, George Williams and 3 other gang members planned to steal drugs from Jack Barron and Willie Thomas. According to the DA, George and his partners cut up pages from a telephone book, wrapping them in paper bags that they were going to pass off as bundles of cash. During trial, witnesses testified that George's gun accidentally went off, striking one of the victims in the chest. Afraid that any survivors would testify, George allegedly shot both men point blank in the head. Then thereafter, George and his homies robbed the dead men and stole their car. George's homies are serving life sentences for their roles in the shooting. In 1991, a Los Angeles County jury found George Brett Williams, aka Big Nutty, guilty of 2 first-degree murders and found true the special circumstance allegations of multiple murders, and that the murders were committed while Nutty was engaged in the commission or attempted commission of a robbery. The jury further found Nutty guilty of 2 counts of second-degree robbery and found true that Nutty personally used a firearm in the commission of the felony offenses. After the penalty phase, the jury returned a verdict of death. Trial court denied Nutty's motion for a new trial and for modification of the penalty and sentenced him to death. Despite Nutty being convicted and as being the mastermind and orchestrator of this double murder, could it all just be karma? Although Nutty was sentenced to death, the streets of LA would tell a different story, one that consists of set hopping and snitching. According to actual Rolling 60 members, Nutty was only part of the gang for a very short time, 5 to 6 months to be exact, before he snitched on damn near the entire hood. Word on the streets is that Nutty is the most legendary snitch in the history of the 60s. In fact, before being put on, members are given a briefing about Nutty, as well as given a strict warning not to be like him.
Daddy got put on. His daddy was from the hood like 5 months before he turned in the whole neighborhood. He the greatest snitch of all time from 60s. I'm talking about as soon as you get put on 60s, they gonna talk about the nigga daddy. Hey, you don't want to be this guy. The nigga daddy was in protective custody. I got the paperwork, copies of it. Nigga daddy was in protective custody before he turned the hood and all type of shit. You know what I mean? All type of shit.
OG Cartoon from 53rd Street Avalon Crips at one point took to his YouTube channel to run an app about having a beef with Nutty.
Man, I'm back again, man. This is a story with me, the homie Crazy Ray, and a guy by the name of Nutty. You know, me and his father had an issue back in the day. Anyway, so now, when the dude pull up and go to woofing, whoa, he kind of woofing at Ray. Now you already know, homie, in my heart, that's a no-no. That was a no-no off the rip. So boom. Ray immediately draw down. Boom. So when Ray draw down on Slim, I'm next to him. The dude Nutty from 60s, he draw down. So when he draw down, I draw down on him.
To further add insult to injury, Munchie B will speak on the fake Loose Cannons Pop Wow on the No Jumper podcast.
Termaine and Jermaine, they brother, they twin brothers. They dad, the snitch, he's from Athens Park Bloods. He's from Hoover, Fine Eye Hoover.
Wait, what?
And then he's from Rolling 60s Crip. Like
the dad turf hop 3 times?
Bro, listen.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here, guys.
Sweetie! Bro, all Rolling 60 Crips. Nigga, listen. His dad was from Athens Park Bloods to Fine Eye Hoover to Rolling 60 Crip. He's a notorious snitch. He took people down. It's like it lines up with their behavior. Like they you know what I'm saying? Like how you go all these hoods and you stitching on people and then, bro, sweetie!
This dude is just like his daddy. This dude, Luce Cannon. This dude is a rat. He told on Big U. He told on mine.
George Nutty Williams, a.k.a. Luce Cannon's dad.
His daddy's lied on so many people. 4 different people got him life sentence.
Little Eddie boy ended up getting convicted of. And this is when the name George Williams comes into play.
Devil from 5'9" that he told on lost his life, brother, in the penitentiary because this dude's daddy, Luce Cannon's daddy, Nutty, lied on that man, got that man a lifetime because he was a high-powered rat informant.
There was a $25,000 reward for anyone that could solve that case.
And I'm telling you, bro, these informants, they will make up shit on you and they will lie on you just because they can get to that bag, bro.